So everybody, welcome back to another stream. Today I've actually got Tabitha Farrar, the founder of Active Eating Disorder Recovery for Adults, and she's obviously written a book as well, Love Fat as well, which is absolutely amazing. Does a lot of podcasts and website. So I'll link all the description down below in the comments, the description section as well. So Tabitha, if you would like to just kind of introduce yourself and let you know obviously about what you do. Obviously, cover the story.
So I am an eating disorder recovery coach. I'm English, but I live in Colorado now. So that's sometimes a bit confusing for people. But I'm an eating disorder recovery coach, and I basically spend my day, I coach people via Skype, just like kind of like this video call now. So I work with people all over the world, which is amazing and has been really interesting because you can see sort of from different countries how eating disorders are treated. And guess what? They're kind of not treated that great anywhere, it seems. And it's actually a sort of testament to the problem that's out there and this gap in treatment that people like myself, I'm not a doctor, I'm a person who recovered from anorexia, that people seek people like me out and say, can you help me? That just kind of shows how lacking the current treatment situation is, which is a really sorry state of affairs, that's for sure. So yeah, I had anorexia for 12 years, 10 years, like full on. And then the last couple of years, recover, wobbly, until I finally just realized what unrestricted eating meant, stuffed my face with food, put on weight, lived happily ever after. So, and I was late onset, so I was around 17 when I onset anorexia, and it wasn't really to do with anything with negative body image with me. I didn't really even want to lose weight. It was just circumstantial, and for the job that I was doing, which was exercising racehorses, I've ridden horses all my life, and that was my summer job. And I just wanted to lose 5 pounds so I could be lighter to ride this certain horse. And I was sort of always been naturally quite slim, and my whole family is like that. So that's our genetics. And it turns out that just 5 pounds or so was enough to trigger anorexia for me, to go into energy deficit. And yeah, so that sparked a good 10 years of hell. I had a really high exercise compulsion. That was like awful for me, running. I was just hours and hours every day, all types of exercise. I went through every diet under the sun, restrictive diet, gluten-free, dairy-free, vegan, paleo. Like I cycled through all of them, which is kind of what the book that I wrote is about. It's more about me going through all of those diet cultures and then at the end realizing that, oh, I just need to eat a load of food and I just need to not restrict any food. And that's kind of what I learned after going through all of that and how I recovered.
That's obviously what you're talking about there is obviously with the treatment and such like. So that's a big thing in the UK because really there's only like 2 eating disorder units. There's one in Edinburgh, there's one in Glasgow, the Priory, but they only have like 5 beds. And most of the time we're actually sent to psychiatric units. And I've always found that it really doesn't help because when I was in there, I was really educating the nurses because they were coming up to
and
they were
I think that one of the worst things, Tommy, is just, especially if you're an adult with an eating disorder and you're sort of like treated like an infant and a delinquent, as if you're sort of in prison and have done something wrong. And I just think it's really awful the way that adults are treated and the lack of information and education, and treatment still being based heavily on the psychoanalytical model, which has no scientific proof behind it and was just thought up by some psychoanalyst. Like, oh, that seems like it's a good idea. It's generally, it's kind of that bad. Like it should be funny, but it is that bad.
I always really thought it was like sending going into the hospital like a broken arm or something and sending you back out with it bandaged up, because you were getting in there and you were just basically getting in there to get fattened up, if you like, and basically sent back into the community with the same issues that was obviously controlling your eating disorder. And you knew fine that you were going to get back out there and lose all the weight because that was your mindset, because you were just basically in there and they were watching you eating food and you were getting watched going to the toilet. And I just don't.
It's and I never never went into treatment. And that's not to say that that's a good thing. That was just, I was always really damn stubborn. I would have totally been labeled a really difficult case that's like, what do they call it? Seed, like not going to get better type person. I just knew that I would not tolerate anybody trying to psychoanalyze me. I was just not, I knew that would not end up good. So I didn't go to any treatment, and I made a full recovery by just focusing on the eating food. And that's not to say that people should not go to treatment, because that's relatively unsafe to not have any medical supervision or anything like that. And in hindsight, now I know better. I'm like, I should have had medical supervision. But it's also, I think that especially when you're an adult, you've just got to work out what is going to work for you. Like in your situation, what is going to make this work? Because especially say things like inpatient treatment or residential, we have in the US as well. Yeah. If some adults have kids and they have families, and it's just not going to work for them to go away and stay somewhere else. And that doesn't mean you can't recover. You've just got to recreate it in your home situation.
That's it. And I think recently they said that a lot of people had been having to travel like 500 miles down to England to actually get treatment. And I heard a lot of people, obviously like mothers and fathers, saying that they were having to take plane trips up and down because it was the only way to get any treatment, which is terrible.
Yeah.
I think the kind of main problem that I've got is my eating disorder recovery team, they don't believe in like treatment. They tried the Maudsley mantra, and then they stopped it halfway through. They don't believe in medication because they believe that it just like masks a disorder. They think that you've obviously got to get over the issues rather than dealing it with through medication. But recently I've actually got a therapist. She's like a therapist / counsellor. She's been working with me, and I've really made some big strides with her.
That's great.
That's
really great.
She kind of feels that it's wrong the way that they try and put like a certain like weight target, like 70 kilograms, because she feels that it's more detrimental to obviously.
Absolutely. I don't think the whole target weight thing is just, you've got somebody, but if you've got someone with anorexia, you've got someone that has a hyper awareness around numbers and a hyper awareness around weight. The last thing you need to do is say that number there, that's going to be the weight that you need to get to, and turn it into a numbers game. Because the reality is that you just got to eat, you got to get your weight up, and you got to get to when your body says it's healthy. And you'll know when your body's healthy because the anorexia thoughts and all those things will start to get less and go away. We don't even need to know what that number is. It doesn't matter. Just eat food until you start to feel better mentally. And I think that the whole sort of, especially when they give you an exact target weight, like my body has a weight range. My body's weight changes. My healthy body's weight has a range. It doesn't have a set weight. And so it's just playing into the eating disorder mindset when you say that exact number there is when you'll be recovered. First of all, it's not true. Second of all, it's arbitrary. And third, the only person or thing that knows when you're at your recovered weight is your body. Your body gets to decide. And so
I think that was at the same time, the first time around, I recovered for like 6 years away back before I met my wife. I was away up to like 76 kilograms, and I stopped gaining weight. And that's what people kind of worry about. They think that they're going to keep gaining and gaining and gaining, but it gets to the point, you get to that set point weight, and you're not going to keep eating and eating and eating. But at the end of the day, if your body needs like 10,000 calories, like you've always said, that's what your body needs.
That's what you got to do. You got to trust this thing. Human bodies have been around for thousands of years. Like they know where it's at. They know how to do this. They know how to keep you healthy. And what I think all of us who have anorexia learn is that suppressing our body weight and artificially trying to lower our body weight does not result in good health. It results in poor physical and horrendous mental health. And a large part of recovery for me was just going, fuck it, I'm just going to let my body do it. Like, it knows what it's doing. I'm just going to stay the heck out of this. And I'm just going to eat the food that it's asking me to eat, which was not the food that anorexia liked, by the way. It was the complete opposite of what anorexia liked. But it's like the whole time, there's a part of your body, there's a part of your brain that's begging you to eat and eat and eat. And it's always there. And that's one of the things that makes anorexia, makes us so irritable and annoyed and conflicted the whole time, because there's always this part of us that really wants to eat. And recovery is just, I think, about finding that part and trusting it and going, all right, I'm going to run with this. Let's see what happens.
That's why I always your kind of approach where you said basically like, it's like ripping off that Band-Aid and just doing it, because you always worry that you're going to be like a set amount of calories. Like my eating disorder recovery team say I should be eating 2,000 calories a day, and this is where it kind of triggered me the last time, and that's why I kind of relapsed a wee little bit. I was eating a few days where I ate a lot more, and I said to them that I'd ate a lot of chocolate and one day I'd ate a lot of cakes because I was that starved through the week. And then they started saying to me, Tommy, this isn't right, because what you're actually doing is you're binging. You need to stop.
No!
And it just triggered me, because they were telling me that I was binging on the days that I was more because I wasn't.
Do you know where I'd be if I tried to recover eating 2,000 calories a day? I would still be really sick.
Yeah, I think your body actually needs about 1,400 calories at rest just to actually function properly, as far as I know. So,
I mean, we don't even need to worry about the calories. Like, your body's telling you how much it needs. When you have that ravenous hunger and you want to eat chocolate cakes and donuts, that's highly appropriate if you're in a state of malnutrition. There is nothing more appropriate to when you're in a state of malnutrition to want a load of highly caloric food. That's just your body being very smart.
I really haven't been eating really well at all recently. It's been kind of like one meal a day, and certain times I do feel that hunger, and I'm really suppressing it, and I need to stop that, because even though being vegan, I know it isn't right for everybody, and I've always said that you've got to help yourself before you can help others. But for me, it actually kind of opened the doors that my eating disorder actually closed in some ways, because it gave me motivation, because I was doing it for the animals. And I still am, but at the same time, I get days where I eat more, and I kind of don't eat. I kind of restrict in other days, so I've got to really go over that side of things as well. Because the eating disorder is always going to be there. Being vegan doesn't cure your eating disorder. I've always said that.
Right, no, that's true. I think that it's. I know that you have really strong vegan beliefs, and I have no problem with people being vegan, but I know that when a person has anorexia and they're in malnutrition, they need huge amounts of food. And one of the things which is really kind of like controversial, I should say, is that a person needs large amounts of saturated fat in order to rebuild and recover. And I know, I mean, I went through being vegan. I didn't do it for the same reasons that you. I can 100% say that I've always enjoyed being a meat eater, and I liked vegan because I was like, oh, there's a way to restrict, isn't there? You know, it was completely eating disorder led for me. And that's not to say that everybody who's vegan and has an eating disorder had the same wrong intentions like I did. My intentions were purely restriction. I wouldn't have told you that at the time, but that's the truth. And I went downhill pretty rapidly, and it really, my teeth and my bones deteriorated really rapidly as well. What I know about my body, Tommy, is that I need a relatively high fat diet. That's just what my body does well on. I eat a lot of high fat dairy, so full fat dairy, full fat milk. And as soon as I started eating those things in recovery, it was like this calm washed over me, as if my body was saying, thank you. And I think that a lot of it's to do with, as a child, I was brought up on a lot of dairy. It's kind of what my body built itself from initially. So when I had to go into recovery, and when I went into recovery, it's like my body just wanted those building block foods again, and that meant saturated fat. And I still eat a relatively high fat diet, and that's because I like it and it tastes great. And I'm no longer scared of that food. And what I learned, if I learned one thing through my nutritional journey, is that fat is good for you. And all the low fat stuff who has that helped? I don't know. I don't think that's helped anybody.
I'll go to in recovery, because we see that as like the protein stuff and the high fats. That's something you restrict. So obviously that would, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
You've got to remember, obviously, your heart and your liver and your kidneys, most of these calories actually go to repairing that damage, because that's the first before actually putting.
Yeah, and I think saturated fat, it's like the cell building block. And I think that when you are in recovery from malnutrition, your body needs those building blocks. So I don't have, I've known a lot of people recover with being vegetarian, because if you're vegetarian, you can eat that saturated fat, you can eat cheese, you can eat dairy and all of those things. And so that's completely possible. I have to say, I don't know really any people that have made a full, complete recovery being vegan. And a part of that is, I think, is because you can't get those nutrients. I know that many vegan people would say that that's not true, but I think that we've also got to look at, well, what malnutrition is and what it does to the body. And when we're dealing with malnutrition, we're not dealing with a normal person. We're not dealing with a healthy body. If you've got a healthy body, then of course your body can use any type of food to build and do what it wants. And a vegan diet can be entirely healthy if you're in a healthy body, I think.
Yeah, I do know a lot of people that's fully recovered being vegan, but like I say, they've done it obviously for the right reasons. And like I always say, if you're going to do it in recovery, it's making sure that you've got no food restrictions. Like this 80-10-10, Lotto 4 and such likes is just crazy. Enjoy vegan cakes, vegan pizza, everything, no restrictions at all. That's what I would always say to people. Because if you're going to get any of this, well, you need saturated fats, you need obviously protein, you need calcium. You can do that all vegan, but it's making sure that what you originally had before in a US standard diet, you've now got veganized, I would say.
Yeah. And so, I mean, that's great. I don't sort of move in vegan circles, so I don't really know that many people that are vegan, which is probably why I can, if I don't know anyone that's recovered that's vegan, that's not to say that that's not possible. I think anything's possible, but I also think that when you're in recovery from malnutrition, just do the best to give your body what it needs without any restrictions. And I think that, okay, so here's one thing, Tommy, that I think goes on, right? So we know that nutritional rehabilitation and getting your body to a weight that it feels healthy at is vital for anorexia recovery. You can't recover unless you get that. But I do think that the other element to that is neural rewiring, especially those of us who are adults and we've had an eating disorder for years. The eating disorder builds these neural networks in the brain. And neural networks are like links. They link. So it's like thought triggers anything. It's like word association. If I say a word, then your brain automatically starts a chain of things that it associates with that word. And I think that the same thing happens with restriction. We build up these restrictive neural networks. And many of us have a highly OCD component as well. Like we do the same things each day, exercise compulsions and all of that. And I know that when I was in recovery, if I got up in the morning and I ate the same normal restricted breakfast that I always ate, the rest of the day would follow suit. Like it was if I had gone into that tunnel and I was on that neural network and it was fire, doing the same things. It was very difficult for me to get out of the rut. Whereas if I woke up in the morning and got out of bed and ate a chocolate bar, which was completely like breaking all of the rules, then it was like it kind of like tripwired my brain a bit. And my brain was like, oh, okay, well, and then I'd end up eating a bigger breakfast. And then I'd end up not feeling the urge to work out as much. And then I'd be able to eat a bigger snack and a bigger lunch and keep on eating and eating and eating. And that was because I think that really had like that first morning action had set me off on a different neural network. It hadn't put me down that same rut because I kind of like tripwired myself out of it. And so I think that if you are in, if you're something like if you're a vegan, and it can be very difficult to get yourself out of that restriction rut and the neural network if you're still just eating the same foods. You need to really kind of like almost kickstart it with a bit of a shift and tripwire your brain. And so I think that that's one of the difficulties, that neural rewiring part, when you're not, when you're still sort of trying to recover but eating the same restricted foods, then I think that that's one of the real problems there. You just get stuck in that rut and you feel like you can't get out of it. And you've got to be really brave and sort of do something like eating a chocolate bar before breakfast that kind of blows your mind a little bit. And then your eating disorder doesn't know what to do with the rest of the day. It doesn't have a pattern for that. Does that make sense?
I think it's the same even when people are obviously starving during the night. You've got that extreme hunger. They think that if they're going to get up and have something during the night, that is binging and such like. But that's actually your body telling you that it's really starving. It needs the calories. So the last thing you can do is actually not listen to your body. And actually,
it's quite sad, isn't it, really? It's kind of like your body is that hungry that it's waking you up and asking for food. And you're like, no, body, no, you're wrong. It's not time to eat. Shut up, go back to sleep.
I know, yeah. I was also going to say as well, you were talking about obviously the over-exercise. I've listened to your videos a few times recently as well, and you were obviously talking about how that's like the migration response, like when we used to obviously live in clans and such like, where we would migrate when we were hungry to look for food, and that's actually what's causing the exercise, which was absolutely amazing to hear, because I'd never really heard anybody describe it like that.
Oh my God, I had such a horrific movement problem, Tommy. I mean, I spent hours in the gym, on the treadmill, on the score climber, like hours. But even outside the gym, this lower level movement, I had rules like I couldn't stand between 7 a.m. and 11 p.m. I couldn't stand, I couldn't sit. I could only stand. That was the rule. I could only stand.
I would sit there and actually bang my hands and things like that. Like
yeah, movement the whole time. It's crazy. It's not like, I don't know how someone can look at someone like me exercising hours and hours a day, not able to sit down, moving the whole time, and just like put that down to willpower. Like, that's not willpower. That was something else driving me. That was me completely out of control. And so I think that it's the same way that people can look at people restricting and getting to massively low body weights and be like, oh, that's just willpower. Are you kidding me? No, it's something a lot deeper than that. It's got to be some deep-rooted survival instinct where your body's thinking that it's having to move to migrate to escape famine, which makes perfect sense, because if you're underweight, the human body is like, doesn't, like, we're not eating, so obviously there's a famine. And it just boggles my mind that that's not completely obvious, and that instead we're like, oh, there's some, like, this is just this person trying to control themselves. Like, I couldn't do that now. Like, if I wanted to exercise all day and move all day and not sit down, I would get to like 9:30 in the morning, and then I'd be like, oh, stop this, I'm not doing this anymore. Like, there's no way I could do that now. Whereas at the time though, I was completely driven by something that was not in my control to do that. It was like a deep-rooted survival instinct. I've got to move the whole time. And it's so exhausting.
Over-exercising also have a part of purging. Well, yeah, as it's a self-purging, it's obviously another way of using calories. So,
oh yeah, absolutely. And it all ties in. What happens when you have anorexia is that movement and food get linked in your brain. And that's not normal, by the way. It's not normal to have movement and food linked in your brain. But that's an example of like the neural networks I was talking about before. That becomes linked. And then once it's linked, oh my God, is it hard to unlink that? It's kind of, I just knew that everything I ate had to be negated by movement, and allowing myself to eat, I had to have done all of this movement beforehand. It was completely linked to my brain. But the amazing thing about the human brain is that it can rewire. And now it would not occur to me to like, I've got a lunch meeting today, and it would not occur to me to exercise this morning or do anything different just because I'm going out to lunch. Like, it's just completely unwired, which is great.
The thing I struggle with a lot is I'm rigid on what I eat in certain days. Like, I'll have a certain one, like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I'll have the same meal every single day, every single week.
Yeah.
So I need to get.
That's super common as well. And I think that's because say if your brain thinks that it's in a famine, because your body's giving messages to your brain saying, underweight, must be a famine. And your brain thinks that you're in this hostile kind of famine environment, then I think our brains are sort of in a really stressful place. And when our brains are stressed and they think that the environment around us is hostile, then I think they become more prone to forming habits. And if you think about it from your brain's point of view, it thinks that it's in this hostile environment where everyone's fighting for food, and probably it's a really hard place to live. And then it thinks like, well, I did this yesterday, and yesterday I survived, so therefore I want to do the same thing today. And then we get into these really rigid OCD like daily patterns. But then I think our brains also go like, I did this last Tuesday, and last Tuesday I obviously survived because I'm still here, so I want to do the same thing this Tuesday because I was exactly the same. And another incredible thing about the brain is that if you asked me when I was sick, if you asked me, what did you eat a month ago last Tuesday morning, I'd be able to tell you. I remembered that Now, if you ask me, what did I eat for breakfast? I would struggle to remember that. It's incredible how the hyper-focus on food makes your brain store this information, because as far as your brain is concerned, this is the most important information it could ever need to know right now, because it thinks it's in a famine. So the food information is more important than anything else. And it can be really frustrating when you have anorexia, because you find that you know, like, you can't pay attention to other things, but you can remember what you ate last Tuesday morning.
Focusing on anything's an absolute problem. Like I say, I find that quite a lot. Like, try to kind of keep my focus on things is really, really difficult most of the time. I found that quite a lot recently as well, I would say.
Yeah. Well, of course. I mean, you've got the hierarchy of needs or whatever, and food, water, and oxygen. Your body can't survive without that. So your brain's not going to worry about other things when it's like, hello, food is not being met. All your attention needs to go into finding food and eating food. So I think a lot of the things that we experience when we have anorexia is just this interplay between the migration response. Oh, there's not enough food, we need to move. And migrating animals don't eat very much, which is why it's scary for us to eat when we're in that anorexia mode. And then there's conflict between that, not wanting to eat very much and wanting to move a lot, and the other side of the brain, which is just like, I'm starving, I need a load of food. And there's this conflict going on between those two things the whole time, which is exhausting.
I know that as well. A lot of people with eating disorders obviously kind of give themselves this label of being a perfectionist, but you've actually said that you
I'm not
think
perfect. Oh my God. I'm like I haven't even brushed my hair this morning.
You're kind of one of these people that are more about getting it done kind of thing. So if you can
just get stuff done. Like, I know the first book I published it, and then someone, I think my mom, read it and was just like, there's like a typo on every page, like. And so then I was like, oh, I better get a copy editor. And so, you know, like, I am a total, just like, I'm the opposite of a perfectionist. And I know that when I had anorexia, I would have probably looked like a perfectionist, but I wasn't. I was just massively OCD, having to do the same things.
Yeah, I'm really, when I've put myself into something, I get really, really obsessive about it, and I've got to be the best at everything, in my opinion, which is absolutely detrimental, I think, because you can't compare yourself to anybody, in my opinion. Just be yourself and love yourself for who you are.
Exactly. And I think that a lot of people think we're perfectionists because we do appear to be quite perfectionist about food. Food has to be absolutely perfect for us to eat it, but that's more to do with the fact that there's such a high opportunity cost for eating food. We're not willing to eat it unless it's going to be really good, or unless it's going to be exactly what we wanted. Because we get our brains, when you have anorexia, your brain punishes you for eating food. And it's not like a punishing you in the sense that a therapist would say. It's punishing you in the fact that your brain thinks, you need to be migrating. You can't be sitting around eating the whole time. Yeah. You need to be migrating. So it gives us these negative emotions when we eat. So then, in order for us to eat, and in order for us to deal with those negative emotions, we want the food to be really just exactly as we want it. And if we eat something that's not exactly as we want it, we get an even higher degree of negative emotions. Because then the brain's like, are you kidding me? You're not migrating, and it wasn't even that good? So we get,
I've also, as well, I've heard them say that people with anorexia and such likes are really intelligent, but I've always said to myself, well, I can't be the stereotypical anorexic, because I just don't feel I'm really intelligent at all. But
no, I've never met a person with anorexia who wasn't super smart. I totally buy that one. And I don't think it's necessarily high IQ intelligence. Like, I wouldn't say I'm high IQ intelligence or anything like that, but we tend to be kind of savvy, like smart type, problem solver type people. And that's why I love working with people with anorexia, because the other thing is they always have an amazing sense of humor. Like, people, and I know that when you're in the disorder, a lot of that sense of humor is gone because your brain's so super stressed, it hasn't really not thinking about being funny that much. But when people start to recover, that really begins to come back. And I think it's that you have to be highly intelligent, because your brain is kind of the things that my brain used to associate and be OCD about. It was like the more complicated than any math equation that I was ever given in my life.
Yeah, I can totally understand it.
Yeah, like, do this at this time and not that at that time. It's just like, and there's always so many rules, and many of the rules are conflicting. So you're trying to like juggle all of these conflicting rules to try and make it just right each day.
doing everything at a certain time, having my meals at a certain time, even going to walk the dog at a certain time, going to the toilet at a certain time, which is absolutely crazy, you know what I mean? But the things that OCD tells me, like, I can always get to this certain stage where I've got to do everything at the time that I've got to do it at. Everything kicks in.
And it can be incredible, and our brains problem solve, because I was very like that. Everything had to be a certain time. I had to have done a certain amount of exercise. And even if it wasn't the exercise, I had to have walked from my kitchen to the toilet however many times before I was allowed to eat, and all of that stuff. And then the problem solving bit comes in. Say if someone interrupted that and I wasn't able to do one of those walks, my brain would immediately fly off into, well, what can I eat less that will make up for that? Or how can I exercise more later to make up from that? Well, my brains fly into this problem solving network to like, okay, let's make this right. And the hardest part of recovery is not allowing that to happen and just being like, drop it. I'm not eating less and I'm not moving more as a result, just making yourself drop it, which is so difficult, but important.
I think the kind of point I'm at now, I would really say that I'm in this kind of quasi-recovery, because it's like they've put this target for 70 kilograms, which I know really I should be, because I was 76 originally before, but that's not to say that that's my body should be.
Let's just leave that number out. It's bullshit. Let's just...
It could probably be higher than that, being honest, but at the moment I see to this 50 kilograms, and this is, in my mind, I know it subconsciously that I've got this thing in my mind that 50 kilograms is the point that I can stay in the community and not be in hospital, and it's kind of like, it's no sick, but it's no any better. So I get to this 50 kilograms and it's a fear of getting any above that. And this is where I keep stuck at. And I go for like 49.6, 49.8, 50 kilograms, back down to the 49.6. And it's because I'm not eating enough, and it's because this is a kind of safe point, and I need to try and just give into it and just say that I'm just going to eat as many calories as
it sounds like you need to stop weighing yourself, because that number is holding you hostage.
I actually don't weigh myself at all. That's one thing I gave up years ago.
Oh, good.
The only time I get weighed is every week at my eating disorder recovery team, but they don't blind weigh me. They weigh me, obviously telling me my actual weights.
Yeah, but you just need to, it's kind of like you got to streamline, focus your mind and buffer out all of that. The weight doesn't matter. None of it matters. You're hungry. That is the truth. The truth is that you are hungry and you want to eat a load of food, and you've got to channel into that truth. And that doesn't mean that the fear will go away. It won't. You'll be really scared, but that's going to be just that blinkered focus.
I've actually got a question here from my friend Jess. She says she's in the same position as me. She's in this comfort zone. She's scared to hit a certain number, but she's finding it hard to stop weighing. If she weighs herself in the afternoon, but she's got a constant worry because she gained 0.5 kilograms in a day yesterday.
Which is nothing.
Exactly. That's probably because she is weighing herself in the afternoon, and the fluid and the food.
Doesn't make any difference. Like anything, like, it doesn't make any difference. And our bodies fluctuate. Like my healthy body fluctuates usually anything between 5 and 7 pounds a week. Like, and I don't really know because I haven't weighed myself for ages, but that's one thing that I've learned about my body, is that it doesn't have a weight. It's an organism. It fluctuates. And so the focus needs to come off weight. It doesn't matter. Focus on what your body's telling you. All the information is right there. Your body's telling you to eat more food, and it knows better.
She also says as well, she's struggling with taking fibre pills as I'm getting really constipated a lot. Does my life improve when weight is restored, and do you stop caring about weight eventually?
I think that, well, first of all, I think that our brains are neuroplastic. You can rewire any thought pattern. It doesn't even matter where it originates. If you put in the work to rewire that thought pattern, then you can do it. And there's this saying, where your attention goes, energy flows. And that's talking about thought patterns and how you change thought patterns. And if you pay attention to thoughts, you are giving them mental energy and you make them stronger. So and that goes for anything. It goes to fear. It goes to fear of weight gain as well, whether you have anorexia or not. Or it goes to that if you keep on giving that thought attention and allowing yourself to think it, you're feeding it. You're making it stronger.
Exactly, yeah.
And that's not to say it's easy to ignore thoughts. It isn't, but it's possible, and it's worth it. It's worth developing that technique and being able to do that. And I think that in the society that we're in, where everybody's scared of weight gain, and weight gain is like the biggest enemy. It's public enemy number one, isn't it?
Especially around this time of year when it's the kind of diet culture for Christmas and such, like, so all this rubbish about you gaining like 9 pounds over Christmas.
You can't get away from it. Everybody's terrified of weight gain, and that's really sad. But so guess what I'm saying is, one, you can do the work, you can unwire that, but that's going to be incredibly difficult when you have active anorexia. So when you are underweight, your fear of weight gain, it's like on steroids. It's so strong. And that's because your body thinks that eating more than the smallest amount possible is a threat to your ability to migrate, and it's a threat to your ability to survive. So therefore, it sees weight gain as proof that you've been eating more than the lowest amount possible, and therefore you're not migrating very well. You're being a bad migrator, and you're probably going to die. So your brain's really scared of weight gain. And that's going to stay true until you get to a weight that your body's like, oh, don't need to migrate anymore. Everything's hunky-dory. And it starts to then also not even focus on weight or food and all of that stuff anymore. And it starts to focus on other things, usually stuff like reproduction. So something like, oh, boys, or oh, girls, you know, like your brain starts to go to other things, which is totally natural. And so you've got to get yourself out of malnutrition. And that's the catch-22, isn't it? Because you've got to gain weight to get yourself out of malnutrition, and you're scared of weight gain. That's where you need support. You need support to do that, because you've got to do it, and it's going to be scary, and you can do it, but you need to be able to have people that you can say to, I'm freaking out right now and I'm terrified, and get it all out, and then keep eating. You need that support, and it doesn't have to be high-level professional support. Like, you've just got to find people that understand, and that can be, you can find those anywhere. And you can also train people. I work with lots of people who have trained their partners, their friends, their flatmates to be able to help them. People are highly trainable. If someone cares about you, then they're highly trainable, and we can train them to help you.
Eldenor Constant was asking, what was the hardest part for your recovery? Was it eating enough, seeing your body change? And she says, is there any new sensations in your body? And what would you tell yourself if you could go back to the days before you had an eating disorder and your recovery journey and the difficulties it included?
Oh, like, you know, before I had anorexia, I was totally happy with my body. I never had any body negativity at all. I just wouldn't have gone on that, like, I would have never started working at that race yard. Like, I was just doing it for a bit of extra money. I would have never done that. That's what I'd tell myself. So hardest part for me was cold turkey on exercise by far. Yeah, I genuinely thought I was going to die of anxiety when I did that. But I didn't die of anxiety. And part of me was so relieved not to do that anymore. But that was really very difficult for me, especially I'd just been running that long for so long, and it was just it was also my identity, because I was a personal trainer and a weight loss coach in a gym. So when I gave up exercise, that was really difficult for me. Gaining weight, I was never thrilled at being emaciated. So it's not like I didn't know I was underweight, and it's not like I didn't know I needed to gain weight. But even so, when my body did start to gain weight, there was a part of my brain that started to freak out about that. And it felt like a subconscious, it didn't feel like, if I tried to put any logical reason on it, it didn't work, because logically I knew that I wanted to gain weight. Logically, I knew I needed to gain weight. Logically, I was on board with gaining weight, but there was a part of my brain that was still freaking out. And I think that's due to Dr. Laura Hill talks about the insula, which is the part of the brain that deals with perception of self. And I think if you've been very underweight for a long time, then your body starts to see that, or that part of your brain starts to see that as, oh, this is normal, this is me. And our brains are designed to maintain homeostasis and think that anything that's outside of homeostasis is a threat. And so when you start to put on weight, I think that part of the brain goes like, ah! Something's changing. Ah! And what I had to do was, I would notice things changing. And as soon as, like, I think that most of us, when we have anorexia, we do body checking. But I'm not even talking about body checking. I'm talking about things like feeling my arm just randomly brush against my side and then being like, oh, there's flesh there. I'm talking about that kind of thing. It was just not used to it. It was just different. And what I had to do was I had to, when I had that feeling of that's new, that's different, I had to stop myself from then immediately going to, and that's bad. I had to try and remain neutral and just be like, it's just different. It's just different. Don't judge it. Don't judge it as good or bad, which is easier said than done. But again, this comes down to mental control, of being able to control those thought patterns and just be like, stop it. Don't let it be negative. It's just different. Just because it's different and new doesn't mean it's bad.
I get it often, like my wife will say to me, I'll go through and it's like you're wanting assurance for somebody. I'll go through and I'll say to her, do you think I should have a snack tonight? And I'm saying, oh, I don't think I should. And then I'm like that, I'm like checking, and my wife will say to me, wait a minute, you're body checking, and I don't even realise I'm actually doing it.
It's because you want that snack and you're trying to get permission to do it.
That's it.
Yeah. And then, so the rewiring part there is to just, as soon as you notice that you're body checking, just be like, oh, if I'm body checking, it means that I do actually want that snack and I'm looking for permission. So therefore I'm going to stop body checking. I'm just going to eat the damn snack. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I've got a few questions for Inspiring Dreams. She's asking how to prevent purging and how to stop chewing and spitting.
I think it comes down to a lot of the same thing. Well, okay, so purging is like, it's this, I was talking about that argument between the part of your body that's like, I really need to gain weight, I'm starving, and the anorexia part that's like, no, you can't eat, you got to migrate, so stop thinking about food. And so then what happens is you eat a load of food because you're starving, and that's totally natural and appropriate. And then you suddenly get intense feelings of guilt, shame, disgust, regret. And I didn't purge via vomiting. I used to exercise and restrict. So I used to purge via exercise and restriction, same thing, whatever. I know that if I ate something more than what was normal or what my brain perceived to be the lowest amount possible, I would suddenly feel like I was crawling out of my skin, like screaming anxiety and and I totally understand purging, because then in that moment, you're just like, I need to make myself feel better. How can I get rid of this food? It will make me feel better. So you purge. Or for me, I would eat and then put my trainers on and go and sprint run to try to make myself feel better, because it's that screaming anxiety, crawl out of your skin anxiety. But the thing is that if you can urge surf and if you can hang in there and let it ride over you, it does pass. And that's, again, where support comes in, because you eat something that's big and you will have that 5, 10, 15 minutes, maybe a little bit longer of rah, and you need to be able to reach out and have support and be like, I'm freaking out right now, hold me in this space, because that's all you really need to do. You need to hold yourself in the space, and it will go, it will pass, everything passes. And then, you'll start to feel better.
Isn't it? I think that's the kind of thing, that finding something to distract yourself to keep those kind of thoughts.
Yeah.
I got it often. Like I would say, I was very big into purging, like I say, through vomiting, laxatives, exercise. And that's why I always worry, like, for some reason, I don't know what it seems to kick in with me. Like, if I happen to be really, really ill, like recently, I suffer bad with migraines. Recently, I actually started vomiting through because of the migraines, and it got to the point where I actually ended up relapsing just about last year because of that. So what I've got to do now, I've actually got to stop myself being sick when I actually have a migraine, because it's just like, once time I'm sick, that eating disorder just seems to, and then I keep
because it triggers that neural pathway. That action of being sick is associated with these neural pathways that are linked to anorexia. And I was too proud and to ask for a lot of help from people. But even I sort of used people sometimes without them even knowing it. Like, I knew I was going to have this reaction, say, after I was challenging myself to eat pizza for the first time. So I invited a friend to come over and have pizza with me, because I knew that if he was there, I wouldn't be able to pull my trainers on and be like, I'm just going for a run. And he didn't know that he was playing that role for me. but he was. And then there were plenty of times what I used to do sometimes was after I'd eaten, I would just like, when I felt the urge to run, I would just like lie on the floor and be like, I'm not getting off the floor, I'm not getting off the floor. I'd just make myself lie on the floor like a lunatic until it passed.
I think with me, obviously, my eating disorder obviously started with the loss of my mum and such likes, because that was what kind of triggered it for me. And obviously my wife's miscarriages, then my father dying. So it's always been a way of coping with grief. And I've never really seen it relapsing until it's too late, because I just limit and limit.
That's the thing about anorexia. It doesn't kind of walk in and announce itself and be like, hey, I'm anorexia, going to ruin your life. It doesn't do that. It creeps. Before you know it, you're stuck in it. And by the time you've lost weight, that's the point where it's even harder to get yourself eating more and to get yourself out of it.
So she's asking as well, how can I help with an eating pattern to ease her stomach discomfort, and techniques to obviously help with body image issues? I think we've
I'm just writing a book which is all about, it's going to be called Rehabilitate, Rewire, Recover, and it's all about the rewiring stuff, like the neural stuff and the tools that I used, because I'm trained also in meditation and yoga for PTSD and trauma, and in those trainings I learned a heck of a lot of how to control neural pathways, because when someone has PTSD, or they're a war veteran, or they've been in domestic violence, then a lot of recovering from those experiences is being able to start to sort of like not react to those neural pathways. And so when I was learning that stuff, and that was kind of when I was still in recovery then, I was in that stage, I was in the same stage when my weight wasn't super low, but I was still super messed up. And I started to apply those things, those techniques to getting myself to eat more food and rewire on my brain. And so I think that's a really huge part of it, learning that mental control and learning not to respond to those urges to restrict or to exercise or to purge, and putting tools in place, putting things in place that's going to help you get through all of that is really important. And what was the other part of that question?
She's saying basically to help with an eating pattern to obviously ease her stomach discomfort.
Oh, I mean, GI issues, it happens. I mean, if you think about it, your metabolism is super low. And so all of the resources, digestive resources, all of that is slowed down. It's going super slow because your body's like, well, there's not much food coming in. So what's the point in like investing in the digestive system running efficiently when there's not that much food coming in? And so then when we start to eat more, it's like we're putting a load of food into a system that's not geared up to handle it. But we have to do that because in order for that system to gear up, we have to put pressure on it. And then after a while, your body's like, oh, there's more food coming in. I better gear this up and get it going more. But then there's going to be that gap. When you're still in malnutrition, the body doesn't have a ton of resources. If you think of energy like money, it's like if you're in malnutrition, you're really skint. And you don't have a load of money to put into your digestive system and make it better. So there's going to be this time period where it's just all a bit crap. And you're trying to eat more food and your digestive system is not very efficient. But if you keep going, your body will start to invest and put money into your digestive system, put energy into your digestive system, make it run better, and it will all start to gear up. But the problem happens is that people start and they eat more and then they get these bloating, stomach cramps, all these GI things. You can have all the symptoms of IBS and they go, that's it. That was the food that did it. It was the gluten. I shouldn't eat that. Which, no, it wasn't the food. It's just that your digestive system is malnourished.
That's great. I was going to, before we obviously finish up, I was just going to chat away to you and ask you about, obviously, your operating manager at the Medicine Horse programme, if you could explain a wee bit about that.
Yeah, so that's actually, and this is just entirely coincidence. And it's kind of ironic because anybody that's read my blog or listens, you know that I'm not like exactly into therapy. I'm not against therapy, don't get me wrong, but I'm not like...
Bad experiences.
I've never been to therapy, just bad experiences through my clients. And I think that therapy is great, wonderful for many things. Getting someone out of malnutrition is different from talking to them in therapy. But anyway... But I've always been into horses, and there's a local equine assisted psychotherapy, and I just actually went there and I was boarding. I retrain racehorses. And I was boarding a horse there, and loads of great people, loads of really great therapists that are doing things like using horses to help kids that have kind of messed up a bit, or army veterans, or people with traumatic brain injuries, and they're using horses to like just help them, which it does seem to, for some people, it seems to really help. And so I took the job of operations manager there, and I don't do anything with the therapy programs. My job is just the horse welfare and looking after the horses and things like that.
Dogs recently, they're doing that quite a lot with eating disorder patients in the UK, using dogs as therapy and such likes as well.
I think that animals make people feel better, and I think that anything that makes you feel better, when you have a recovering from anorexia or any other eating disorder, and you are going through all of that stress and anxiety that we've talked about of recovery, anything that makes you feel better is worth it. And I got a kitten when I was in recovery, Sprout. She still lives in the UK with my parents, and it just kind of gave me something that, waking up in the morning, that made my heart happy to see that little kitten.
Know that you've got to take care of yourself to obviously take care of that kitten type thing, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think that animals some people, I guess not all people, but animals tend to make people happy, and they certainly make me happy. And I think that if you're in recovery, you kind of got to, like, part of the recovery work is like working out, well, I'm going to be super stressed and this is going to be really hard. What makes me happy? What can I use as support that's just going to make me get through each day? And it doesn't even have to be anything related to eating disorders. It can be a kitten or a puppy or anything like that. And I think that that's really important, because it's a stressful time. So doing things that make you happy.
Yeah. So I think that's everything. Have you got anything you want to say to anybody before you go on?
I just think that if you're watching this YouTube on eating disorders, or not YouTube, it's live, isn't it? But if you're watching something on eating disorders, it's pretty likely that you have an eating disorder, and it's pretty likely that you're not okay. We say that anyone that's reading my blog or watching any of my stuff is pretty likely you're not okay, because this is not the kind of stuff that you just watch for fun, or watch for you don't read stuff on anorexia just for the heck of it. So take that and understand that if you're not okay, that's not okay, and something needs to change. And it's never going to feel like the right time to change. There's never going to be the right moment. It's always going to be difficult, and you just need to be brave, bite the bullet, and go and eat more food.
My friend Jess was actually asking there. She said to me yesterday, what's the best way to get in touch with you? Because she's actually looking to look into things like therapy, because the therapy in this moment in time in Australia isn't really helping her, and she's
it's really hard. Well, I'm not a therapist. I don't think I pass. I swear too much for a start. I don't think therapists are allowed to swear. But my website, I guess, which is tabithafarrar.com.
That's great.
Blogs and stuff on there. Oh, and we've got someone wants to come and say hi.
Oh, come on up. This is it.
Always plays with the wire.
Oh. He's absolutely gigantic. He's about 6'6".
He looks so big.
The monster. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. Thanks very much, Tabitha. And everybody, please go and check out our description. It'll be down in the description below, website and things like that. And
Tommy, I'm rooting for you. Get 100% better, and then you can be like the vegan activist of everything. But you've got to get better, and just
definitely.
One thing, rooting for you. You can do it. I know you can.
Yeah, thanks very much, and thanks for all the work that you do. It really is. It's true inspiration. You really are. Speak to you soon.
Bye, Tommy.
Bye. So, guys, like I say, please go and check out Tabitha. She's absolutely amazing. All